Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this panel. My name is Alejandra, and I'm Data Partnerships Manager at CARTO. And I'm co-hosting this panel with three great panelists who will be introducing themselves. So, Ariel.
Hi, I'm Ariel. I lead data and insights at Foursquare, the leading location technology platform, where we're helping developers, brands, agencies, platforms, and publishers understand how people move about the world through our unique technology, translating signals from devices into foot traffic patterns and visitation to various places. So excited to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ariel. Elizabeth.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Gilbert. I'm a data scientist at SpatialAI based in Cincinnati. Spatial is a geosocial data company, so we take geolocated social media posts where people are talking about their experiences with the world and turn that into a segmentation of 72 customer segments, so everything from dog lovers to yoga advocates. And for this, with this, for example, a fitness retailer can see where people are talking about fitness. So that's what we do. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Mark?
Hey, good morning. Mark Gibbas. I'm CEO and founder at WeatherSource. WeatherSource is a weather information company. We have databases of weather information that cover the globe, so we're spatially complete on that, and also temporally complete. We have weather information from the year 2000 up to current time and then into the forecast. So a continuum of weather information over space and time. We help companies by providing this weather information so that they can understand and analyze how weather is impacting their operations in various ways. You know, whether they're trying to understand how weather is impacting different KPIs or impacting profit and things like that. So we help a multitude of different verticals, everything from energy to agriculture to marketing and product placement, and you name it. I think weather touches many, many things. So we do have kind of our fingers into many different areas of the economy. And today we're going to be talking about how weather is coinciding and affecting COVID-19 and how we can take advantage of weather to help protect people and businesses. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. As you mentioned, this panel is called The Value of New Spatial Data Streams versus COVID-19. So my first question here is, did you find any difference? Have you seen any different usage of your data, of the data that your companies provide pre-COVID and post-COVID? Like, is it different, the use that companies give to the data nowadays? So let's say, Mark.
Sure. Yeah. Great question. And yes, I think that the short answer is yes. I'll back up one step. When COVID first hit, there was some suggestion that temperatures were affecting the spread, and cooler temperatures were kind of making the spread more robust, I guess, is a way to think about it. So we started doing research on that as well, along with a number of other universities, and we did find a lot of correlation between cooler temperatures and a more robust spread of the virus. Because of that, we opened up our on-point database to researchers around the world. Anyone that was researching COVID could use our database for free and do their research and try to find more weather associations. So we're happy to have done that, and our data set is being used quite a bit to help solve that problem, whatever benefit it can bring. In terms of what's changed, companies before were certainly trying to find ways of understanding how weather was impacting their business. Now they have new problems to solve. They're trying to keep their employees safe. They're trying to understand where they can operate safely. So simple things we can do are providing our data sets along with other business information, and then they can find out how how these two things are kind of the union of how weather and their interests in COVID are kind of coming together. A simple thing we did is like for the November average temperatures, right? The typical temperatures you see in November. If you overlay those with business interests, you can see where those cooler temperatures are starting to come down, and where COVID rates are going to go up. So just a simple overlay like that, and we're doing that in CARTO, by the way. And we have demos here if you want to take a look at it. But so anyway, the message is the same in the sense that we're providing weather to solve problems, but the difference is now we're solving, instead of your typical KPI type problems, now we're solving for COVID. How our business is going to be using weather to keep their operations going, keep their restaurants open, things like that.
Great. That sounds super interesting. Ariel, what about Foursquare?
Yeah. On our end, I think there's been a misperception that location data is only helpful for marketers and advertisers because they were some of the most early adopters of location technology. But over recent years, we've started to see more industries looking to use location data to make informed business decisions, such as in real estate, urban planning, finance. And that's still an emerging space, but it's growing really quickly. And it's become much more in demand since COVID hit. Businesses are wanting to understand the economic impact of visitation. I think in an earlier panel today, I heard someone saying that, this pandemic is really intrinsically tied to the places that people are going. And so, they're looking to understand not only the economic impact, but also, how are foot traffic patterns changing, and using those insights to build a playbook for recovery and bounce back. So local, state, county officials are using our location technology to ensure citizens were adhering to shelter-in-place orders right away and quickly. So we developed a dynamic tool where all these different types of users could access our data for free, looking at visitation down to a county level to try to make those decisions in real time. And so that has been really a new use case that we hadn't really had to address before. We're also, publishing our insights on our blog and helping various different partners understand this rapidly changing environment in a way that before perhaps wasn't as applicable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Elizabeth, and apart from the use case, I'm also curious on how all this pandemic has changed the segmentation SpatialAI does, because I'm sure there's been some kind of movement there.
Yeah. So about the use cases pre and post COVID, typically our people, you can use our data in the same way that demographics is typically used. So site selection, customer segmentation, predicting sales, price, and real estate. But with COVID, the customer change is what we've been focusing on. So if a company is struggling, who are their best customers and how do they hold on to them? And if a company is doing well with COVID, then who are those new customers? It's a really important question for them to answer. Specifically, one thing we looked at one case study that we've had with customer change was with Sonic in Georgia. They jumped from combining our data with mobile movement data from the 22nd most visited retailer to the 5th in Georgia. And this is a huge change. And so we wanted to look at who those new customers were. Pre-COVID, it was a lot of hip hop culture, praise and worship. Post-COVID, or during lockdown, it's a lot of connected motherhood, family affinity, organized sports. And this is a much higher income, more suburban segments, and a totally new demographic that Sonic was serving. So that's kind of how our data has been used. We did also look at the change in behaviors, which segments were more active and less active in what they were being discussed on social media. I think we have the next questions kind of related to that, so I could jump into that if you'd like. But
absolutely. So my next question was, what can you tell us about how your data is going to help navigate the new normal? So go ahead.
Okay, so this change in behavior is, first of all, with COVID, we put out a sentiment analysis data set right away. That just showed how people are talking about COVID in the US and Canada. But with this change in behavior, the behaviors have been increasing and decreasing is one of the things we looked at actually in a case study with CARTO, right away, our first case study with COVID. And what we saw with the change in behaviors was really interesting and made a lot of sense. So the behaviors that went down were things like live and local music and party life, and the behaviors that went up were things like the biggest winner was animal advocates and dog lovers closely followed. So this makes a lot of sense because the behaviors that went down were the ones that you can only do when you have social connection, interaction, you have to be in the same place. And the ones that went up were ones you can do alone. What do you do when you have a pandemic and you have to stay at home and get a pet? But so we want to take it a step farther than this and look at it in conjunction with sales of a major online pet retailer. And what we found was that in places where dog lovers had increased, there was actually a 0.7 correlation with sales for the online pet retailer. This is notable because there's not always so high a correlation as 0.7 between a single variable and sales. And this is people's behaviors during COVID directly translating to their purchasing. And so ultimately with this, this is just adding context to the data that already exists to see the people behind the demographics, the sales, the devices, and how they're changing.
Interesting. So Ariel, what about you?
Yeah. I mean, core to Foursquare's culture is the belief that our technology has the power to be really helpful to others. And so when COVID hit, we were really quickly responding. Our team said, what can we do to help? And so that was really the impetus for these different initiatives where we felt we could be most helpful through our deep understanding of how people move through the world. And so, really quickly, our R&D team put together that dynamic tool, a recovery index, which I mentioned before, and started publishing these insights on a weekly basis, showing the different trends and then helping specific partners understand how they were performing relative to their category or competitors, and understanding those shifts in how far people are traveling from their homes to reach places, how long people are dwelling in different places, what time of day are people out and about. We've seen people out and about a lot more in the middle of the day because their routines have been upended. So those insights have been really helpful to all these different types of partners to make their decisions. But we really wanted to make sure we're helping. So another interesting activation we did was with Link NYC, where we were able to power their digital billboards in New York to help people avoid crowds in nearby stores by showing on the billboards when the local pharmacies and grocery stores within that radius would be most busy or least busy, to really enable that public health. So that's one key area in which we're helping navigate the new normal. I think the other big topic that came up this year outside of COVID was around social justice. And so we've also been expanding and thinking about how we can be helpful there. So one example is we are offering our API to Tech for Black Founders and engineering resources, and that's helped a company called Peep Connect provide insights and analytics for small businesses, and that's put them 6 to 8 months ahead of where they would have been without our technology. And so, small businesses are some of the businesses that are hurting most during this time, and so we're thinking about how can we power them with data. So those are some that come to mind, but certainly there's lots of different ways in which we're helping different verticals, whether it's figuring out whether restaurants should open at different hours by day part trends, or helping retailers figure out the safest times of day to shop. So lots of different ideas there.
Fantastic. Mark, what about others?
Yeah, I think the same thing is happening all over the place. Basically, it comes down to the fact that COVID-19 has changed consumption patterns and changed how people are going through their lives every day. The get up in the morning, get yourself ready, drive to work or commute to work, and then come home, that's gone, for many people working from home. And that changes everything from, your work life to how you're consuming goods. Are you going out to restaurants as much? No. Are you going shopping locally? Maybe not. You're doing a lot of things online and such. So that shift everywhere across the US, across the world really has changed shipping patterns. Okay. So now there's a lot of shipping and delivery that is happening at a scale that wasn't happening before. that puts a lot of demand on those companies to understand how weather is impacting, their operations every day. So we're seeing a lot more demand for, support for home delivery in various ways, whether that's things like DoorDash or FedEx or whatever. They all have to work around the weather in order to, be successful in getting that to you. So that's just one example, but it's happening across, many different areas. So I think the short message here is, because of how COVID has forced us to change personally and at scale across millions of people, that has forced industry to change too. And, weather is an important part on how, they need to optimize. So, we're extremely busy right now, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can imagine. It's fantastic to see how every company has pushed to help fight this pandemic somehow, with technology, with data, with services, with many different things. Everyone is willing to see this end, and everybody is helping so much in any way they can. So that is absolutely fantastic. I also wanted to ask you, each one of you, because your three industries are pretty different. So what do you think the future holds for the spatial data industry? Your companies have a big focus on spatial. So I would like to know what do you think the future will bring to each one of your companies? Let's start with Mark.
Sure. Yeah, happy to answer that one. Weather itself is extremely spatial, right? I mean, it's raining over here, it's not raining over there. There's a drought over there, there's a flood over there. So all of these weather features are spatial in nature. So we have always needed to use spatial databases and spatial applications in order to do our work. I think what's changing for us now is that is not just a tool we use, but now it's moving out into applications for our customers to use as well. So, for example, we have CARTO dashboards that our customers can interact with and start to appreciate the weather in a more visual, more graphical way, and to be able to run queries, spatial queries and so on. So it's an important part of what we do now, and it's going to continue to be important. And if anything, the need for tools like CARTO and platforms like CARTO is just going to expand going forward from here. So, and I think part of this too is kind of fostered by this pandemic we're going through. People need to solve challenges and solve them fast. And I think, the need to be able to, use tools like CARTO is just growing, to be able to do that.
So we can say it's a great time for spatial, right? Absolutely. Either spatial platforms, spatial data, spatial anything, which is great. Elizabeth?
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing with COVID has shown us is there's less wiggle room now. There's less room for error. With a hard economic time, you can't make decisions based on gut feel. You have to make data-driven decisions, or else you're behind. And location powers that in a lot of ways, a lot of industries. Specifically with spatial, I think how we've seen with our company, how we've seen the change in behaviors with COVID. That's really, shown a use case that, when a pandemic comes up, we can capture something that's really important and really hard to capture, really important for companies to know that change in behaviors when you have a lockdown, when you have to stay at home when you're ordered to. How does that change how we do life and where we spend our money, and what does that relate to? How do those change in behaviors impact everything? How does it impact commerce? But in general, I do agree. I think the industry is growing despite the challenges of COVID, and in many ways in the value that we can add during this time with our very diverse, unique data sets, and the tie that location has to that, the patterns that we see in how we act and how the world changes with pandemics and without. So I think it's growing. It's going to continue being able to add value in a really unique direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Ariel, what about Foursquare?
Yeah, I think location technology is still emerging and really ripe for innovation, and it's getting more and more sophisticated. So one area that we're excited about is partnering with other types of data sets to derive even more rich insights. So, whether it's social data or weather data, like my two fellow panelists, but also other data sets. Today, we launched a study using TV viewership data to look at foot traffic amongst different news network loyalists since COVID happened. We're also launching next week a study with Amazon Data Exchange and Apptopia, looking at mobile app usage data combined with foot traffic data to different restaurants to think about how mobile apps are playing into delivery versus takeout. So I think there's a lot of room for innovation there. I think the other area that we're excited about is different applications of that location data for consumer experiences. So this week we launched MarsBot for audio. Our R&D team, Foursquare Labs, was thinking about how audio, AR, and location can intersect. And so MarsBot for audio is a proactive walking assistant where if you're walking down the street, you have your headphones in, the app is going to tell you an interesting place nearby that you might be interested in based on your past behaviors. So it's still in its infancy, but it has a lot of potential, especially when you start to think about, how could this help visually impaired users or things like that. So of course, with all of this technology as it's maturing, it's always important to keep in mind the ethical considerations and making sure there's a value exchange in the utility that you're getting out of sharing your data. But I think even with that, there is a tremendous amount of innovation that we're excited to continue to see.
I have a question out of curiosity, is there a project you are most proud of in this old pandemic COVID-19 era that we're living? Is there a project that your company is involved in that you are most proud of? So, who wants to go first?
I guess I'll jump in. We were very proud to be able to provide access to our on-point database to the research communities when this all started happening. It was a way for us to just say, here it is. Try to find whatever value you can. And I was really happy to see hundreds of research teams around the world grab a hold of that and use that to find how weather was having an impact on the spread of the disease and everything else. So I think that's probably the most proud thing that we did. I mean, it's not super sophisticated to open up a database and make it available, but I think it was a great gesture to the world. So
definitely.
I think for us, it was certainly that recovery index that I mentioned and bringing our R&D team together with our insights team and data science team to put out that tool really quickly. And then to start to hear about, different state and local officials using that to make decisions about, hey, we need to shut down this beach. Hey, we need to create more restrictions at these parks. That really was great to see and made us really proud that we could really help in this time of uncertainty and ambiguity.
Both of the examples I mentioned, both with Sonic and the case study with CARTO, looking at change in behavior, I think, one thing I think of is, so to capture the change in behavior, it's valuable, obviously, for companies like Sonic. It's for companies that are affected positively or negatively, both, but also in general to the immediate capture of, look, social behaviors are going down and behaviors around pets and things you can do alone at your home in solitude safely are going up. This captures the truth of what's happening, that people are taking it seriously and distancing and this is for real, and it's important to take these actions, and other people are doing it, and we're not alone. We're in this together at a broader scale beyond just the companies that use it and that applies to their customers, but for everyone to see.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I don't have any more questions for you today, but we have a question in the chat. So this one's for Mark. Have you looked into GPT-3?
What was that question again? I'm sorry.
Have you looked into GPT-3?
GPT-3.
Yeah.
Can I question somewhere?
Martin Nenoff says, fit it all weather data in existence and have it generate tomorrow's. It must be some kind of software or.
Yeah, I'm looking for the question. Is that on the event?
On the stage.
On the stage. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay.
It's a language model.
Yeah. Okay. We haven't looked into that. We're happy to take a look and consider it. I wish I had looked at it ahead of time, but no, we haven't looked into that. So.
Well, that's great. As we need to close this panel, you have information about the different studies that you've mentioned, that the panelists have mentioned on the chat. Also, you can see weather source COVID-19 resources and SpatialAI insights from Geosocial in some of the links that you will find in the chat. The only thing that's left is to thank you all for being here and for giving us your thoughts and your experiences. So thank you very much all, and let's see, we can all fight COVID-19 together with a lot of data and a lot of technology. So thank you all.